last year I gave the Save the City address at the Beck Center, which I thought was appropriate because it's one of our vital cultural institutions. And I'm giving it here this evening at Horace Mann really for the same reason. Before I get to the body of my speech and to the PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to do, I thought it was important. It's important symbolically to be here because of the tie that exists, the partnership that exists between the city and the schools, and the fact that the future of the city is so directly tied to the future of having a viable and vibrant school system. So I thought that was important. And I've said this before. I've said it in the course of the levy campaign, and I will say it again tonight, and that is, no one has been able to give me the example of a city which is our size or close to our size, which is considered a thriving city that's a desirable place to raise a family, that doesn't also have a thriving and viable public school system. So it is impossible to separate the two. It doesn't matter what we do with our safety initiatives or housing initiatives or any of the other cultural institutions we have to have that as a bedrock of the community, a thriving public school system. And it also doesn't matter whether you happen to have children or whether you happen to have children that happen to go to the public schools or the private schools. Anybody that is a homeowner, anybody that has a vested interest in the future of the city, part of the equity of your home is directly related to the viability and the success of our school system. It cannot be separated. And so I'm very happy to not just support the levy, but serve with Councilman Summers as the co-chair of the levy campaign. And it's also, I think, important to note we're in a period of transition and change in the county and the state and the country and also in the city, and it's putting pressure on institutions, all institutions. So it's really kind of a period of time where things are going to be thrashed out, and some institutions are going to survive and some are not going to survive. And some cities are going to succeed and some will not. And some educational institutions will succeed and some will not. So even with private institutions, even with the private education in the city, which is also important for the future of the city. You recently had St. Cyril and Methodius School announce that they would not be reopening for the next year. And that's also a blow to the city because it's important also to have, as well as having great public schools, it's also important to have a private option as well. And Lakewood Catholic Academy is celebrating its 5-year anniversary actually, and it's thriving. And it's also important to have a thriving private option as well. It's part of the whole fabric of choices and options that make Lakewood a great destination for a family. This evening, I've noticed I looked back at my previous State of the City addresses, and I found that the first one that I gave was almost completely rhetorical. And I think the reason for that was because I had just gotten started and we had some plans, but we did not have accomplishments or results to share with you. And the second one was less rhetorical, but we did have a PowerPoint presentation, and we gave a summary of some of our policy initiatives and what the results of those initiatives were. And with the third one, I found that there's going to be very little rhetoric, and I hope I have really, it's almost a briefing to you as taxpayers and as residents of what we've managed to achieve, what we've identified as the problems, what our strategies have been, and what are the outcomes have been. And it mirrors the same kind of management style that I have as a mayor, which is we try to, in a very honest manner, identify what the problems are in the city. We don't sugarcoat it. The city isn't perfect. It has problems and challenges. We will identify them. We will come up with strategies that we think make sense, and then we will try to measure the outcomes with whatever statistical measures that we can. And I think that's just the logical way to present it. When we took office, and this is kind of do this in a little bit of a chronological or logical fashion, we felt that really what we first had to do was we had to get our own house in order. It's difficult to address any kind of major systemic or citywide problem if you don't have your internal policies and procedures correct. Now, sometimes governments make the mistake of completely focusing inward and not trying to change lives or change neighborhoods, and that's a mistake too. But we spent a lot of time and a lot of effort into trying to make sure that internally we were running efficiently, that we were doing it in a manner that reflected high ethical standards. And then once I felt that we had our internal processes correct, then we could go out and really try to change things in the community. And I think that's what we're saying. Now I'm going to try to operate this. I usually don't do too well. There we go. We have 22 separate policy areas or challenges that I'm going to try to cover this evening. And it's going to be about 20 minutes each. So we should be done. We'll be done before school starts at the clock. People will be begging for the papaya song, people. No, I will be using my auctioneer style of speaking and going through these, but I really, we actually cut it down to 22. But let's just get rolling. You know, the first one, the big crisis with the city was our budget crisis. And those of you who have been to previous State of the City addresses or any of our listening to Lakewood meetings we've had or any city council meeting we've had in the last few years, you know how dire the situation was. The city was to just follow our kind of format here, the challenge itself, the problem itself was extremely grave. I mean, the city had gone from a surplus of millions of dollars to a projected deficit of over $4 million just in our general fund. We were really on the verge of being in a fiscal emergency status, which if you are given that designation, it's really a black mark on the city. It really shakes confidence. It hurts your bond rating. There's all kinds of negative implications to it. So when we took office, things were really in a desperate circumstance. This is a summary. I know you're not going to be able to read the fine print, but let me tell you what this says.